Let's take you to some very, very good news and tell you that the State Police Command says its operatives have rescued the 9 students, even though some say it was 10. So we do have a disparity with the number, but of course we'll get clarity this morning. The students who were actually abducted along the east-west road in Ughelli, Delta State. Now, the students were said to have been kidnapped by a group of unknown gunmen on Friday along the Evwreni axis of the east-west road in Ughelli North local government area of Delta State. Meanwhile, the Delta State as well has come under fire for the recent incidents that saw the death of 17 military personnel killed in Okuama on March 14, 2024, and were buried at the National Military Cemetery, Abuja, on Wednesday. Of course, you do recall just a few weeks back. The tragic incidents has led to calls for strong intervention from the president. Also, oil theft seems to be a major challenge in the South-South. Well, this morning, joining us to review the recent challenges Delta State is facing is the Executive Assistant on Orientation and Communications to the Governor of Delta State. We do have Dr. Fred Ogenesive Latimo. I hope I got that Ogenesive.
Yeah, Ogenesive. That's actually the surname.
Correct.
So
Latimo is the middle name. Okay. So Dr. Fred Latimo Ogenesive.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
It's good to have you. First off, how's your trip to Lagos been like?
Right, good. I've been in Lagos for a while. I'm the only one in Delta. My family are actually in Lagos.
Oh.
So I came, one, for the Easter celebration.
I see.
And two, to also find time to join guys like you.
Interesting.
To talk about national issues.
Very good. So let's get on with it. Let's talk about the national issues right away. I think the right place to start off first is with the recent, the good news, the kidnapped students. We do hear 9, we do hear 10. Is there any confirmation on the actual number of the students?
The issue of kidnapping is in the domain of the security agencies. And if we have got to talk about the actual figures, we must go along with the statement by the State Police Command, which says 9. And so maybe in the course of future releases, we will get to know whether they are more than 9 or not. But as of today, the figure is 9.
Okay, great. So that clarifies that 9 of them, 9 were actually kidnapped, okay?
Because
and then
the State Police Command, PPRO, Daffy, in a statement yesterday, he said 9. So I want us to stay with 9.
Okay, fine. So we'll stay with 9 because the EA, Orientation and Communications, has indeed clarified that. So we'll ensure that we also clarify that right there on the screen. But then again, kidnapping in Delta State and then they're being released. We're also expecting to hear maybe while they were released, they were apprehended as well, those who carried out the act.
Yeah, I think about some suspects were apprehended as well.
Yes, about 10 of them as well. Yeah, we hear. But why is kidnapping all of a sudden starting to come forth just immediately after the Okuama incidents? We're starting to see a lot of incidences rear its ugly head again in Delta State.
Well, the issue of kidnapping is nationwide stuff. The East, in the Southwest, in the South-South, everywhere. And it's more attributed to issue of poverty and hardship in the country. You see, hunger is not good at all because any hungry person would do anything to survive. Nobody will want to stay and say, okay, you want to be a responsible citizen under a hardship and you die in hunger. It's not common to hear people do that, that he has to bear hunger until he dies.
Yes.
That is not true. People would really need to survive. And this survivor thing is what is responsible for the incremental crime in the country. The hardship is really there. Even the government in power, Mr. President, has also acknowledged this, that there is hardship. And if the issue of hardship is not addressed, we are likely to be seeing things like this happening because people are getting to be impatient and agitation is getting higher because of cost of living. The inflation rate is high now, about 35%, and that is from the previous 15 or 14 we had previously. And so I think if we have to combat the issue of kidnapping and criminality, the government has to do something more. We need to come on board with policies and programs.
When you say the government, are you referring to the government at the federal level or the state level? Because what we see a number of the times is that the government at the state level will usually defer to the federal government, but we've had the same issues plaguing us in the area of insecurity. They would usually defer to the federal government because security is within the purview of the federal government. But we've seen some other states look for creative ways to sort of take care of their state's insecurity challenges. We've seen the Amotekun, Ebubagu. Is that maybe something that Delta State is exploring?
Yes, thank you. You see, this issue of hunger we talked about and people pointing fingers at the federal government is very simple because the economy is controlled by the federal government, the monetary policies and all that. You can see the dollar rate, the decision taken, that decision was by the president to liberalize the flow of dollars and, you have a common market. And that actually, gave us a very big problem. Now, it went from about 650 naira to a dollar to now about 1,250 or 300. So you can see that that difference will not create additional, inflation, in the system. So actually, if it's controlled from the federal level, it becomes easier for the state government to manage. But in Delta, for example, the issue of hardship, I won't say it's not there, it's there. But, we have measures, to control this. Because what we do at the state level is that the government have a program for the youths and the girl child. We have programs in agriculture, we call YAGEP, we have STEP, we have RISA, we have all kinds of programs that people enroll in. And then we train them and we give them starter packs and even encourage them, give some cash to start their own businesses. And this was started by the government of Governor Kowa. And the incumbent governor, my boss, the governor of Delta State, Right Honorable Sheriff Francis Oboriwori, has also decided, to expand that program, both for the girl child, for the youth, for women and all that. And even for the other, for graduates, undergraduates, we have a program for them in the universities, trying to encourage them that during holidays, they need to come together and acquire skills. Because the way the country is going today, white-collar job is not just there. So you need to have some skills to add to your education, and then you can move on. And then we're also addressing that also from the issue of technical education, because we got that brilliant idea from the, results that we got from these, skill acquisition programs that we have had in the past, and how it has helped our youths, to become young entrepreneurs. So the previous administration too decided that each local government must have a technical college. And those technical schools, you know what they do, the carpentry, artisans and all that. So by the time you now leave school, you can, government can assist you. Even family members can even assist in some of those things, like buying you tools and all that, and you start your own, small business. So each of the local government right now, we are building technical schools. We have done almost half of that already, and that will continue, including our empowerment programs that we'll do for the youth. So in Delta, really, this issue of extreme hunger and hardship that people talk about, it is not really there.
That's not the reality of what we're hearing, sir. We have a correspondent in Delta State who... Yes, exactly, who was able to speak with a number of people in Delta State. And the reports that we've gotten from some of them is how it's biting, and how it's biting hard. They've talked about how their income, of course, is not matching the expenditure. We recognize that this is a nationwide problem, not just a Delta State problem.
We just mentioned that, that, if the economy is not that favorable at the federal level, if the economic policies are bad, and then we are not also having measures to address them almost immediately, you see, it will be a spillover for a long period of time. And the more the inflation goes up, the more it gets, harder on your pocket. And that is why you see that the income of civil servants and all that, they are unable now to cope, with the rising inflation. You get the point. So, for example, if the dollar drops, if the naira value appreciates, maybe to about 500 naira to a dollar now, you will see that there will be, a fresh air. People can now begin to manage. But the higher the dollar, the higher the inflation. And also the issue of PMS, fuel, is not helping. Because if you are selling fuel at 700 naira per liter, okay, those who are transporting goods and services, those who are producing, people who sell foodstuffs and all that, that transport them from one place to another, they will add those differences on top of the prices of the goods that we buy. That is why you see that the tuber of yam that used to be maybe 200 naira previously is now selling for about 2,500 because of the cost of transportation. So if we address the issue of this fuel thing, we were expecting that by now the Kaduna refinery should be working, all right? The Port Harcourt should be working. And then also with this Dangote thing, we thought that when they will start to pump fuel, into the system so that can bring down the cost of fuel. But we are not getting that yet. But I hope we'll get there. But I think what the federal government should do now with Dangote refinery is that they should try as much as possible to come to a common ground. They should agree on something. Give crude oil maybe at a fairly reduced price, although they say it's controlled by the international market forces. But you can find a way to give them some crude. Produce this crude because we are no longer importing now, so we are not going to be paying import duties on fuel. Then what we can do, let's give Dangote some crude oil, then pump fuel into the system, so that instead of buying at maybe 600 or 700 naira per liter, we can get maybe for like 450, 500. That can also help to address the issue of inflation. Anyway,
I'm sure the government, the federal government, is looking into that. It also shows that some of the policies is equally affecting Delta State as it is. And I mean, you said it here, with which we can also allude to the fact that the governor of Delta State, yourself and every other member, is also feeling the heat of ensuring that they take care of
and the governor also at the time, introduced measures to cushion the effect, especially for civil servants. And for about 3 months or so, we're paying civil servants 10,000 naira monthly to augment their transportation. And that really helped a lot, and they appreciated it. And also, we try to see how some, categories of workers don't come to work every day. Delta and some other states will also adopted that system, which is also very good. Instead of you pay transport to work for about five days in a week, you can come 2 times or 3 times, depending on your categories of persons. And that is still ongoing in Delta. All right. So those are some of the measures to make sure that, your take-home pay is not, completely, consumed by this inflation that we have.
All right, let's review the happenings in Delta now. We've looked at the kidnapping. We've gotten clarity. The students are hale and hearty. We've talked about the numbers sticking to 9, 10 suspects being arrested. Let's go to one of the biggest stories coming out from Delta State, which has driven a lot of conversation. The Okuama and, of course, Okolaba and the killings. We've not really gotten the true picture of what went down, what happened. One of the stories we've seen, especially with our man who's there, you have the people saying it was the soldiers who started first. There's a story. I'm trying to give you all the different stories we've heard. The soldiers came first. They wreaked havoc, and then there was a reprisal attack. Another story says they came to rescue someone who was a relative of someone in the government. Another one says they came, it's all about oil bunkering. They wanted to protect their own territory. What's the true story, if you can share with us?
Well, the true story from the government angle is that the Okuama issue in February was addressed. The Special Advisor on Peace and Conflict Resolution, Chief Uzo, and his team, and even the SSG, Secretary of the State Government, Dr. Emu, they were on top of this issue, and it was resolved in February. And there was this peace agreement between these two communities that they will live in peace together. And that is why we said that, look, this issue came to government by surprise, because we were not expecting it. Haven't signed peace agreement in February, and see where we are today. So what brought the issue of peacekeeping and crisis in that region that got to this level came to us as a root shock, because it's not something government was expecting. Haven't dealt with the issue. But that aside, the military went there, I'm sure for one reason or the other, bordering to on peacekeeping and all that. And the news that came out from there was very shocking. And that is why we are talking about it. First of all, let me say that it is not right to have killed our soldiers the way they did. Mutilated, took their arms and ammunition, dealt with them like common criminals. That is not acceptable. It's under no condition should that happen. Okay, if soldiers came for investigation over an issue, because if you also follow the story, they said they were even entertained by members, the elders of the community, and they had some discussion, okay? So which means that the soldiers did not even get there in the first instance and start shooting, all right? There was kind of a conversation. And how that conversation ended is what investigation, ongoing investigation, will have to reveal later. What that transpired, you had guests, community, entertained them, and they were talking. And suddenly, it led to death of soldiers. So what transpired? I think that is the domain of this investigation that is ongoing. And you must have heard that one of the royal fathers, who was declared wanted, has turned in himself.
Yes. Which is quite commendable.
And at the end of this whole investigation, we'll be able to know exactly what transpired.
Who's carrying out the investigation? Because it would, I don't know if it comes out as fair if the army is conducting an investigation in a matter in which it has an interest. There's going to be some conflict of interest. So do we have an idea yet if the army is the one conducting an investigation, or if there's an independent arm or independent body that has been set up to carry out this investigation?
But I do know that, investigation usually will be in the domain of the police to do. But in matters of military, where when we now talk about arms and ammunition of the armed forces of the military missing in action, and then there are senior officers killed in that manner, I think the first thing that the military want to do is to make sure, like they have said, is to get the ammunitions back, okay? And in getting that one back, that cannot be a civil approach. That cannot be something that civilians can be involved in. The only way you can involve civilians at that level is the community leaders on how, you can, track some of those people who were behind the scene and then try to see if they can get some of these ammunitions. But, but for me, I think this investigation is going to take two phases. Okay. The phase one will be the military aspect, on how they can get their arms back, and then to know the details how their men were killed in such gruesome manner. Okay? Then the second part of the investigation will be how did this whole thing started? All right? Who are those behind it? How we can get them to come and face justice. In facing justice, that will not be the responsibility of the army, because the army does not prosecute. So it is the police that will now, and the DSS and other agencies that will now go into that, get those people, and then they will face the course of the law. But for now, I think what the military is trying to do is to try and see how they can get their arms and ammunition, and then track down those who actually killed their men, and then probably hand them over to the police for prosecution.
Well, that's a bit concerning, because a party should not be a judge in its own cause. Yes. And what that would mean is that we're giving the army the opportunity to be judge and jury in its own cause, whilst they're not sort of saying who is wrong, or they're not bringing judgment, but they're investigating.
Yeah, you are very correct. You are very correct. But don't forget too that the head of the armed forces and the commander-in-chief is the president. All right. So let's avert our mind to that. That whatever the army is doing today, they have the instruction and they have the permission of the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Without his permission, without his consent, they can't do what they're doing. So if we're looking at the military now, we should not be looking at military as per the chief of defense staff, chief of army staff, and all the brigade commanders. We should be looking at the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And with his powers, he can even say today, say, okay, military, hand over this investigation to the police. And they will obey.
I'm hoping that they do.
And they will obey. You get my point. They will obey immediately. That the commander-in-chief have said this investigation should leave the army to the police. Once the commander-in-chief does that, it's so. But the way it is now today, and the army is investigating, and Mr. President is watching, it means that they are working together in consonance, and this direction or directive may have come from Mr. President.
All right. We would look at that as well, but there are also stories that the state government...
And let me also add this. You remember also that my governor, immediately the issue happened, the first thing he did was to go to the Port Harcourt commander, the commander in charge of that area, the Joint Force commander, to commiserate with him. And at the same time, they had a closed-door discussion, which was not even disclosed to the press. I'm sure Austin Azu must have told you that when they got there, that the government did not talk to the press because of the weight of what they discussed. And the next thing he did, the next day, he was with Mr. President. And he also had the conversation with Mr. President. And those conversations, I think, is for the resolution of this same matter. Okay, how we can find these culprits and how we can get those arms and ammunition of the military that were taken away, and how we can resolve this matter between the military and the civilians so that the soldiers in Okuama, they can now withdraw and they will restore peace and tranquility, to that community.
I'm sorry to butt in now, but I just want to quickly refer to something you've said about the response of Governor Sheriff Oboroweri. One of the criticisms that were leveled against him was that on social media, for 24 hours, nothing was said about it. A number of people wondered why he hadn't come out to address and maybe empathize with what was happening. That's one. The second thing is, were there reprisal attacks? Because what we're seeing in social media, we're seeing in the news, even the Vanguard does report how some residents in Okuama community are in the bush, they're trapped in the bush, and they've sent SOS calls to Governor Sheriff Oboroweri as well as to Tinubu asking for help, because maybe in this case, they're afraid of the reprisal attacks by the army. So it's a two-in-one question. The reaction of Governor Sheriff Oboroweri in the first 24 hours, especially on social media, as well as what is being said regarding them being trapped in their communities.
You see, in matters of public interest, you can't misinform anybody. It is important that you must get the facts ready before you now begin to talk. And that is the nature of person that the governor is. It's not that, he says something when he's sure of it. And when a matter of this magnitude happens, you just can't be talking to the social media. First of all, you have to be in touch, get intelligence report, and then hear from the key people that matters, all right, before you start talking. So for him to just come on social media like that, it would have been nice. When he wanted to say something, he said it through the Honorable Commissioner for Information, Dr. Mike Osoza, saying that, we should maintain calm and that he's already on top of the matter. And he's actually on top of the matter.
Okay.
Even after that, for you not to hear today now that the soldiers are killing more people in Okuama, shows that the governor is working. And he's working behind the scene. And when he addressed, the press call at the Aso Rock Villa in the presidency, what he said is that, no, some of these things, we can't discuss them in the public. That security matters is not every detail that you bring to the public domain, which is very correct. And so because this matter is a core security issue, you don't expect the governor to be speaking every day, all right? Now he can be working behind the scene.
But some would say at least we should be getting updates at least weekly. For instance, now you do have the fleeing villagers who are shouting and calling out for SOS, that they are stuck in the bushes.
I can assure you that the governor is on top of it.
Okay, and also, can you clarify to us that the governor has been allowed to go into that community? Because with all the stories and what we hear is that he has not gained access into where that incident took place.
That would be done at the appropriate time.
So he hasn't been there yet.
I've told you that, look, maybe you don't even know the magnitude of what happened. For civilians to kill lieutenant colonels, major,
we do know.
It's a very, very, very serious matter. Don't just take it. It's not a small matter at all. If it has happened in the US, it's the same thing. You can't take that. So it must go. The process must be systematic. All right. It must be systematic. It must be reasonable. I mean, you must make the army understand that, look, you really sympathize with them. All right? They have lost their men. They are there, they are angry, they are not happy. You cannot be going there the next day to say, I want you to live here. No.
So we're not saying he should live there. We're just saying, has he been able to visit the site? We did hear that he tried going.
That is what I'm saying.
He didn't get
Governor
access.
Going there, governor going to that domain will come. at the appropriate time.
Is it that he doesn't want to go, or he has been prevented from going? And I'm asking
nobody can prevent the governor.
Because I'm seeing an article that was on the Vanguard on the 1st of April 2024. It's by a lawyer called Oseya, Nigerian lawyer Frank Oseya. He says it's wrong to prevent Oborewori from accessing Okuama, and he condemned the inaccessibility of Okuama community by the Delta State governor. And he spoke with the Vanguard over this incident, saying that the role of the army in the aftermath of the ugly incident so far leaves a stale taste in the buds. And even talking further, that if you look at the article...
My dear,
yes,
that article could have come from anywhere.
I mean, that's what we have here. That's what we have
here. For me, nobody can prevent the governor of Delta State from entering any community in Delta. So why he's the chief security officer of the state. Just give me some time. He's the chief security officer of the state. And we have what they call the State Security Council in the government house. All the leaders of the armed forces, they come. DSS, Army, Navy, Air Force, whatever. All right? So they meet regularly. They interact on a regular basis. And you remember when the monarch of Ewu turned himself, you know, his Royal Majesty Clement Ekulu, when he turned himself, you saw the way it went. The police commissioner was there, the army chief was there in commanding the Asaba area, and the government officials were there. They all escorted him to the airport. That kind of arrangement came from the governor. That couldn't have been an ordinary arrangement. All right, that's why I tell you that the governor is working behind the scene. He's not used to saying things that will just suit people. He likes getting results. Take, for example, how these 9 students were recovered, were rescued within 24 hours. All right? That is it. But the governor did not say anything. But you can see his action. You can see what he's doing behind the scene for those people to have been gotten. It took the governor's personal intervention. You get the point?
Yeah.
And don't forget also that the governor was also, during the Uduaghan administration, he was the special advisor on land security in Delta. So he knows the terrain. He knows Bomandi, he knows Burutu, he knows everywhere. The 3 senatorial districts of Delta, he knew it. And that was why even during the election, when we had a lot of issues, people were cooking up stories. We thought the story they cooked up. He was able to survive 38 lawsuits. And he won the election landslide. Why? Because we call him the local content governor with street credibility. That means somebody who has lived with the people, who knows the in and out of Delta. So the governor is not a man that is used to talking all the time, but he is a man that is always getting results all the time.
All right.
Okay.
I would like to go straight to, because of our time.
I still have an Okuama question in case you are
okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think the final question I have from Okuama, did the army raise Okuama community after this? Because we see reports about the reprisal attacks, and I don't believe that we've been able to answer. Did the army burn down the community? There have been people who say that the army carried out reprisal attacks and burnt down that community.
You see, the army, I think I read somewhere where the army said they did do that, all right? But that remains to be determined in the near future.
So
like I said, there are aspects of this issue that will be dealt with later, all right? Not at this level. This level now, the pain, the agony is much on the military and their families, all right? Nationwide, not just that, nationwide. So you must, I'm sure some of us know about crisis management. And when you are managing crisis, you take it one step after the other.
Okay, so sir, do you know
the issue of burning down,
yes.
the issue of burning, we are going to come back to that later. It's not a closed issue.
So you're not ready to disclose it yet?
Yes, but for now, let's get done with some issues. Let's get done with some main issues like I mentioned before. Getting the arms of the military.
All right.
Knowing those who perpetrated that crime. And then we'll still come back to the issue of who burnt down the community.
So that means you're confirming that the community was burnt down.
But you saw it yourself.
I just need to confirm. I don't want to assume
I saw the news clip. I have not been to Okuama since that happened. But I saw the news clip. I saw it on social media. Fire, got in houses and the rest of them. So you cannot deny facts. Facts are there. Especially when you have images to show that this actually happened. I'm in this studio today. Tomorrow you can say I was actually here because it will be recorded. So because those things were recorded, they become exhibits. They become facts that we can refer to in the future. Yeah. But like I said, in the appropriate time, we will still get back to the issue of who burned down Okuama community.
But it's also important, just as we are prioritizing the military, their hurt and their pain, which is very valid and very credible, I think also the lives of the innocent citizens, because they have been innocent citizens who have been affected by this.
The governor is a compassionate leader. He's going to go back to Okuama later. He's going to do a lot of things in Okuama that you and I will also talk about and say, oh, this is a governor. But we have not gotten there.
All right. I mean, because of our time, let's look at, very quickly, the fleeing villagers who are in the bushes now calling for help. Are there any plans to ensure that these ones can be located, or what happens to them?
Those plans are behind the scene plan.
Okay.
Those are not plans that should be in the public domain for now because of the intensity of the incident. So relating with the army, relating with stakeholders, relating with community leaders to assist, to help the innocent people, not the corporate we are looking for, the innocent people. That matter is a matter being dealt with by the governor systematically behind the scene.
All right. Lastly, because of our time, let's talk about oil theft very quickly. A new report did come out, and it shows that despite the interventions, despite the hard work put together by Tantita and, of course, the rest of the crew, it still seems like oil theft is a thriving business in the Niger Delta. What has the governor done to ensure that he gives his full support and that this can also help in restoring at least some form of hope that Nigeria's natural reserves can be protected and used well for the people?
What is very important as of today, which is also in public domain, is that oil theft in Niger Delta has been reduced drastically, all right, from where we were before. Where we are now is far much better. And I also believe that we're going to make more progress as we move along. I must commend Tantita and Chief Tompolo for the good job they're doing. I think they need to be encouraged. They need to be supported. Because for civilian security outfit like Tantita to have achieved the kind of things that they have done is quite commendable. And I know that if Mr. President and everybody gives them support, we are going to tame this issue of oil theft. Remember that this oil theft thing has been on for a long time.
Yes, it has.
And there is this allegation of some very powerful people behind it. And also that is where we also want the support of Mr. President, being the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, to make sure that as Tantita is working, the Joint Task Force of the military in charge of that area monitoring the oil facilities, they do so in transparency and work in harmony with Tantita so that they can achieve more results. So it is something that is, systematic, and we have made substantial progress, and we are going to build on this, progress that we have made.
Please, in 30 seconds, or as quickly as possible, would you say that the people of Delta State are impressed so far with the governorship of Governor Sheriff Oborowori in comparison to what was had at the time of Governor Ifeanyi Okowa?
Now, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa was a monumental leader. He's our leader. But Oborowori is also coming up in a very fantastic manner. If you look at what he has done, for the first time we brought Julius Berger to Delta to do construction work of our flyovers, all right? It's a 78 billion project that is ongoing at DSC Roundabout, PTI Junction, Evwreni, Unanere, up to Marine Gate. That is ongoing. And we also have other projects going on in the state. And if you watch also the vote of confidence being passed on the governor every day from Delta North, Delta South, Delta Central. And then if you what you see in the newspaper and radio and television, commending the governor for what he has done, it shows that the people of Delta, they are happy with the governor for what he stands for. But let me also add this, that you cannot at this point compare Governor Okuama with Oborowori's administration. Oborowori came on the 29th of May, 2023. He met a half budget. So Okuama implemented the budget from January to May. Oborowori took over from May to December. Then the first budget signed by Oborowori was 2024 budget. And this is the 4th month of the year, all right? We just started implementing that budget. So in terms of performance now, you cannot use 1-year budget that is not even implemented yet with an 8-year administration. So before we now start to compare Okuama with Borivori, we should be saying, okay, Borivori has spent 6 years in the saddle.
I agree with you.
All right? And then you cannot begin to see the difference.
But would you say that they are pleased so far?
What?
Would you say that the citizens are pleased?
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
This is very, very pleased.
We'll go into Delta State and confirm
pleased.
what you've said.
Borivori is a fantastic leader, I must tell you.
And we hope that you grant us another interview because you've unearthed a different angle to the conversation that we'd like to explore, looking at the budget implementation, what he met on ground, what the challenges are. Good. And also we'd like to follow up with the Okuama community because I'm sure that there are people who feel that there are a number of people who feel that, you know, they haven't been prioritized, that the military has been prioritized over civilians. That's the energy that we've gotten from some of the citizens in Delta State. So we hope that we can have you again to shed more light and clarity on that.
I will come anytime. And Azu is always in contact. I've known Azu for quite a long time. Great. So we work we work together. Very good. So anytime you want me, Azu will always tell me.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've had the Executive Assistant on Orientation and Communications, who's been here with us discussing that Dr. Fred Latimer Ogenesibe here on Breakfast Central. We'll go for a break. When we come back after this break, the front pages will be next. So stay with us.